Hi, I'm Matt, and at the very beginning of my YouTube channel back in 2014, I made a video called something like using the Boss OC-3 as your new bass player, and I went out of my way to explain that that wasn't really something I thought was a replacement for a bass player. That did not prevent me from getting a certain amount of hate mail about it. Anyway, Boss has released the OC-5, and so I thought I would do a follow-up video. For the purposes of what I'm trying to do here, it's not really any different than the OC-3, but it does have one new feature that I thought was relevant. It has what's called lowest note, like priority mode or something, where if you turn the range knob all the way down, instead of having to kind of guess where on the guitar neck you want the bass to cut off, it does that for you. So using the Boss octave pedals, the OC-3 or the OC-5, as a replacement for an actual bass player is not a great idea. They don't actually sound anything like a bass is the issue. I wish they sounded more like a micropog or something does, where it's still got some grit and some bite to it. What comes out of the Boss pedals is this very synthy, kind of warm, dull octave sound. So it's not going to fool anybody into thinking it's actually a bass, but if you don't have a bassist and you just need some low frequency content, it will provide that. And I did think that the new lowest note mode on the range knob was a cool feature compared to the OC-3. At any rate, my video about that is very old and I look weird and I sound bad. So if nothing else, this can be the new version of that video. So my signal chain this time, I did not bother to route the bass signal to a separate amp the way that I did before. It just doesn't sound any better. It might be worth doing live if you had like a sound guy and he wanted to be able to mix the bass independently of the guitar signal. That would be an advantage, but I tried running it into a bass amp and processing it the way I would a bass signal, and it does not make it sound better. So I'm currently just running the single output on this pedal, but if you wanted to hook it up separately, the way that you would do that is the output jack right here would be your bass, and so you could plug that into a bass amp or a DI or something, and then the direct out would be just your guitar signal, and that could run into your guitar amp. So that's how you would route it if you were splitting them, but I'm not bothering to do that. So right now it's off, so I just have my guitar signal. And then if I turn it on, I've got the bass octave dialed in already, and then I have this range knob on its lowest setting. And the settings you're going to want to use if you're doing this are the poly mode instead of the vintage mode. There's a little switch between the two. Poly is the one that has this lowest note following thing. And then the fourth knob, the range knob, should be all the way to the left. And then after that, the first knob is now your guitar signal. The third knob is now your bass. And I'm ignoring the second one, that's octave up. So guitar only. Guitar and bass. So theoretically, the way this lowest note mode should work is if I play a chord, it should sense which is the lowest note in the chord and only like bassify that one. It's working okay on this D major here. I'm gonna turn up the low octave so we can hear it a little better. So right off the bat, this does work a little bit better than the OC-3 did because of that lowest note thing. On the OC-3, I remember having to be really careful about something like a G chord here because I would dial in the range knob to give me bass notes up to about a D, but then if I play this chord, I'm playing both a G and a D, and it would have bassed both of them and made a weird chord. So in that video, I clarify that like you have to be kind of careful not to fret the A string too much, and that's no longer really an issue, it seems, with this mode. That's tracking all right, and it's not trying to bassify that note when I'm doing this note. So I do like the lowest note thing. It's not perfect. It'll waver a little if you're doing something complex, but it's definitely an improvement over trying to just guess where you need to be on the range knob and having the notes kind of cut out at a certain point. It even works up high. So I've got nothing but praise for the lowest note mode. That's tracking pretty effectively, and that whatever algorithm is trying to decide which is the lowest note in the chord is doing a good job. You can kind of hear on that, if I do an arpeggio, the longer I go without playing that low note, it does sort of lose track of it. So it'll start to do, like this note or something. But honestly, it's working as well as I could really ask for. The shortcoming of this pedal is just what the bass note sounds like. So I'm going to take out my guitar signal there so you can hear it. It's like this. It's just, I wish that sounded better. I wish that sounded more like a micropog or a nanopog, or the sub and up kind of does this too, so I guess that's not any better. But Electro-Harmonix really has the wherewithal to do a bass octave that sounds crisp still. The Boss does not do that. The OC-3 also had this problem, but it does fill out the mix underneath you in a way that I think could potentially be useful. So just don't solo it like this. I don't like that at all, but with the dry signal still in, I could see that being better than having absolutely no low frequency content at all. So if you don't want to stick to the lowest note mode, it does still have the usual range knob that the OC-3 had. And you can just put it, let's see. Looks like right now it's dropping out somewhere high on the A string. Okay, that's about where I would have had it before, where it's only basing like one octave of notes and then you kind of lose it up here somewhere. Yeah, so that's about how I used to use the range knob. The lowest note thing's more convenient. So like that. And of course, if you're just doing single note stuff, it follows great, you know. I don't know why you would be doing that, but you could be. Anyway, I know the clickbaity title is clickbait-y. This is not the same as having a bass player. It's not even the same as having a bad bass player, but it might be better than nothing, and maybe that's worth your consideration. lowest note was messing up just there. It's not perfect. It is better than the old system. It is what it is. It's definitely a possibility. As someone who made a video about the OC-3, I figured I owed the OC-5 at least a follow-up. It is better than that one was because of that one new addition of the lowest note tracking. It is not better sounding than that one was. Hope that helps, and thanks for watching.